You know it's ironic how life has a way of flipping the script on you. Just a few short years ago, I was pushing a mop in a dingy Manhattan hotel, my dreams tucked away in a corner of my mind gathering dust. People saw me as just another working class girl, no more than a neighborhood maid, and I believed them too. I'd hear whispers in the lobby, she'll never go anywhere, or what's the point of dreaming big? But deep down, I always felt there was more to me than what my circumstances suggested. My name is Maya Johnson, and I carried the weight of my world like armor. Juggling shifts while trying to study law on the side wasn't easy. It felt like I was grasping at smoke, but I knew that if I ever saw a chance to step up, I had to seize it. That moment came in an unexpected setting, a packed courtroom where I suddenly found myself shouting, "I'll defend him!" My heart raced, not just from the fear of judgment or failure. After all, I was stepping into the lion's den, but from a burning need to prove the world wrong. And let me tell you, when you're standing before an elite class of lawyers and a man of fortune who's just lost faith in himself, it takes guts. Every eye in that room was fixed on me, skepticism dripping from their gazes. But that fire ignited in my belly, and I refused to back down, not for him and not for anyone who ever thought I didn't belong. What happened next defied all expectations, even mine. It happened in a flash, like watching a house of cards disintegrate. One moment I'm studying case files, cramming every late night thought into my unassuming brain, and the next I'm sitting across from Douglas Walker in an overpriced office sharing my dreams and ambitions. Then it hit. "Maya," he said, looking tired, "you realize I'm up against the best, right? Those lawyers don't just play games, they crush dreams." "Then let's show them what dreams can do," I replied, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. But somewhere deep inside, the weight of the world was pressing down, and the walls seemed to close in. The real bombshell dropped when I got the call. "Maya, it's over." Walker's high-profile lawyer just dropped him. Guess he figures there's no way a maid could win this case. I could barely process the words. No loyalty, no forewarning, just betrayal. I could feel the laughter from the gallery, a chorus of whispers and snickers, snide remarks punctuating the air like knives. A maid defending a millionaire. Someone scoffed. She doesn't stand a chance. Each word stung, igniting a fire within me. But there it was, the option to back down, to retreat, to rejoin the sidelines of my life. "I'll defend him," I heard myself saying, full of defiance. Their faces morphed from disbelief to disdain. But all I could feel was the pulse of my heart echoing in my ears. I knew I was more than what they saw. Over the months, every ridicule would become fuel. My reasoning was simple, stubborn. Even I refused to quit. Even as the odds stacked high against me and shadows of doubt loomed like storm clouds I dug in. I wouldn't let a betrayal define me. So here's the thing. While my friends were hitting happy hour and complaining about their dead-end jobs, I was sitting on my cramped bed, surrounded by stacks of dusty law books that I'd picked up from thrift stores, praying the pages would magically teach me how to get Douglas Walker out of this mess. Spoiler alert, they didn't. It's like trying to fix a car with a manual written in another language. I was more of a how-to-eat cereal kind of girl than an objection your honor kind of girl. Every time I stepped into that courtroom, It felt like I was wading through a pool of quicksand. And let me tell you, the judges weren't throwing me a flotation device. They just looked at me like, who let the maid in? And let's not even get into Lauren West. Oh boy, she was like a shark in a designer suit, smelling blood and circling relentlessly. I could practically hear her cackle every time I fumbled with my arguments. But you know what? For every glare and every condescending eye roll, there was this tiny fire igniting in my gut. The kind of fire that said, if I go down, I'm gonna take a few of you with me. And yeah, the whispers in the hallways. They were loud, almost drowning out the voice in my head that kept saying, I didn't belong. She's just a maid pretending to be a lawyer. They'd chuckle. But then came the glimmers of surprise as a few sneaky eyes began to observe rather than dismiss. There were moments, small opportunities, where I saw them leaning forward just a little bit, realizing that maybe this maid was saying something worth hearing. Still, every step was a fight. I was battling not just for Douglas, but for anyone who ever felt dismissed, like we didn't matter in a world that always tried to box us in. It was exhausting, frankly. But as they say, it's often darkest just before the dawn. And trust me, I was ready to ignite that dawn storm, or no storm. The courtroom felt like a cage. Every second stretched thin. Maya could hear her heart pound, drowning out the whispers. She can't win. Who does she think she is? But inside a fire flickered. An unexpected find. An old memo in a dusty archive shifted everything. Premeditated manipulation. A conspiracy lurking in shadows. Her hands trembled as she read the words like ghostly fingers tracing her past. It was all there. And the threats came. Cold, sharp whispers filled her ears, back down or else. But there was a moment, a fleeting thought. She could either cower or rise. Maya took a deep breath, recognizing the power nestled within her uncertain heart. This wasn't just about Douglas anymore. It was about every voice silenced, every story neglected. In that moment of solitude, she closed her eyes. What if this was her purpose? What if she was meant to stand? Each breath became a declaration. She would not just defend him. She would expose the truth. Doubt slipped through her fingers like sand. She stood taller. No longer alone, she felt the weight of every unseen ally. The crowd shifted as she walked to the front. An underdog was stepping into the arena. With each word she spoke, her voice strengthened, a spark catching fire. Not just a maid from Harlem, but a defender, an unstoppable force. And with that, the tide turned. No longer bound by despair, the court was her stage and justice her melody. Maya was here to fight, and the world would listen. As the courtroom buzzed with disbelief, Maya stood at the centre, heart racing but resolute. The evidence she'd uncovered was more than just paperwork. It was the truth wrapped in a web of deceit woven by those who thought themselves untouchable. She began her closing argument, her voice calm yet powerful, resonating through the courtroom. This isn't just about one man's reputation. It's about a system that has tangled innocent lives for far too long. Just as she turned to address the jury, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Douglas Walker once a figure of despair, now leaned forward, hope igniting in his expression. With every word Maya spoke, those who once doubted began to see the fierce determination in her eyes, the fire that had fueled her late-night studies and relentless preparations. When the judge finally delivered the verdict, not guilty, the room erupted. Maya caught sight of a headline forming in her mind, "The maid who defended a millionaire." But it felt so much bigger than that. It was a triumph, not just for her, but for every overlooked voice struggling against an indifferent system. Outside the courthouse, the atmosphere shifted. Cameras flashed as the crowd surged with applause, but among them she noticed whispers of skepticism. Yet with a quiet smirk, she met Douglas's eyes, exchanging a handshake that spoke volumes. It was a connection built on respect and resilience. Neither of them had been defined by their past. As she walked away, Maya's victory didn't erase her scars. It simply illuminated their worth. She knew she wasn't finished yet. This was just the beginning of her journey. In the backdrop of New York City, she felt the embers of her fight for justice reigniting, ready to forge a future that challenged the very essence of inequality. As I reflect on Maya's journey, I can't help but marvel at the transformation she underwent, not just as a defender, but as a symbol of resilience and courage. In a world where power often seems locked away behind walls of privilege, Maya shattered those barriers. She learned that trust is a commodity worth investing in even when the stakes are high. But what she ultimately discovered was that revenge, often romanticized as a form of justice, can cloud our vision. Was her pursuit for truth a form of revenge against those who scorned her? Or was it a quest for justice that demanded accountability from those who wield power unfairly? In the end, we are left to ponder, is seeking justice fundamentally different from seeking revenge? This question remains divisive. Some may argue that a moment of retribution can bring clarity and closure, while others insist that justice should rise above mere retaliation. Maya's story stirs the soul and begs us to ask ourselves, how far would you go for justice? Would you risk it all, knowing that the line between justice and revenge can be so thin? As we navigate our own paths, may we find the courage to challenge the norms and amplify the voices that are often silenced. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between revenge and justice? Your story could be the inspiration someone desperately needs.